So, welcome to the Sendlio podcast. My name is Lewis, and we're here with Nick Dunse from Shuttle Global Payments. How are you doing?
Yeah, great. It's great to be here, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're coming from.
So I'm based in London, in the UK. It's the weather's not great, but hey, it's picking up. We're in a fast-moving world with the pandemic still going on here, but you know we're all doing well. Fortunately, in our industry with payments, things have been not too tough. So yeah, I've been working. Gosh, I'm getting pretty old now. 20 odd years, always in like digital roles. Leadership roles for the last little while, working a lot with SaaS, typically, marketing or communications, that kind of world, strategy. So that's been my bag. But I look after, I guess, what you'd call nowadays like revenue, RevOps, or Chief Revenue Officer for Shuttle.
Nice. So I guess like in Europe, you guys have to deal with like GDPR and all of that fun stuff. Like, what does that mean? Like, when GDPR came about, what did that mean for you guys in the payment space, and how do you handle like all of the requirements around that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess no one really knows what it means, but we pretend that we do. No, it's really important, and effectively the practices have been around for a while now across Europe. And I mean, really in the payment space, it depends, what part of the payment space you're working in. But when you're dealing with payments, you're dealing with like the card industry and other requirements as well as GDPR. But GDPR is a lot about how you store and use personal data. So if you've got a consumer facing business and you're collecting card information as well as personal information, you've got to have some pretty strict processes for how you look after personal data, how you respect people's personal data and how they want to be communicated with, So like in the US, you can have an opt-in on a form or you can have an opt-out for a form, whereas you've got to have an opt-in for the form for like a newsletter in Europe. So yeah, there's some more stringent processes, but certainly if you're dealing with payments and card data, probably those kinds of processes are more strict than the GDPR stuff, to be honest. But it's all about personal data. Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about a little while ago how it's weird how with all the different countries around the world, there's different sorts of like different providers are available in different countries, and how, technically speaking, there's not really a reason for that to be the case, right? That it's all around these regulations and laws that prevent that. Why can you not have a PayPal account in Kosovo, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I saw today in the news that, there's a move for a global tax rate for businesses. And it really kind of, and it kind of falls into that kind of bucket, globalization happened. I remember studying it at school. And like, the internet's been around for a while now, and yet we haven't figured out how do we actually legislate and control how companies work across the globe. So yeah, it's changing times, but yeah.
What are some challenges with, offering payment services globally? Like Shuttle Global, that's kind of, what you guys do, right? You connect to all of these different providers around the world and allow, merchants to use one API for all of these different providers.
Yeah, right. So we're actually targeting software companies, and then by in effect their merchants. So we're helping software companies effectively have that infrastructure and that tool set that enables their merchants, their customers who sell stuff, to sell stuff around the world, and more importantly, from our point of view, for software vendors to actually acquire customers globally as well. Because I mean, what's the point of having a cloud piece of software and you're restricted to one country to acquire customers? If you've got payments as a feature, why can't you go and acquire customers around the world? And so, that's one of the problems that we solve. Being able enabling a software company to go and acquire a global customer set, obviously therefore increasing their revenue because they can acquire more customers. And then, all of the technical bits and the local legislation that might be in play with that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's like, we've got the tech. It's just some of those processes and rules and governance haven't caught up.
Is that like the 3D secure stuff?
Yeah, so that's a big thing in Europe, right? So, and to be honest, it's been a mess, but it's landed now, and it's being it's in play. So if you're an end customer, you might get a 3D secure challenge on your screen or your phone, just to verify that it's you. You're actually making this transaction, and you've got to supply a couple of bits of data. The phone makes it a bit easier because obviously if you can use your fingerprint, that biometric stuff's good, a lot faster. Europe's trying to create, I guess they would say, processes and structures and governance that is actually ultimately freeing and helpful. But the tech's got to work with that, and the payment companies and everyone in between's got to work with that for it to actually result in the objectives that they're hoping for.
Let me ask you, let me switch gears a little bit. So in the space that you're in, you deal, I'm sure, with a lot of fraud. There's a ton of issues when it comes to credit card payments with that. Is there any tips that you could give to business owners when they're starting off that they could, I don't know, basic things that they could do to help themselves, protect themselves against some of that?
Yeah, it's not an area that I'm an expert in. And we typically push those kinds of things off to either the payment service provider or those third-party fraud companies, and there's more of those sort of third-party companies springing up now. But yeah, I mean, are you asking from a software vendor point of view, or are you asking from an end consumer point of view? Just
end consumer point of view, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's the basics, right? I mean, I heard the other day, I saw on LinkedIn the other day, a connection of mine, his daughter, she got her bank account emptied by a fraudster because she gave away some details. So you've got to keep your personal details safe, and you'll be surprised how many people don't do that. You shouldn't be writing down any of these details anywhere. You don't want to have the same password, pins, and all of that stuff. Says the guy who has the same pin for his phone, card, and Netflix account. But that's not true, by the way. But that
it's like all his friends who share his Netflix account now.
Yeah, they can also empty my bank account. But I think a lot of the stuff is just basic. It's just being careful around how you're storing that information. And it's generational as well, though. I think older generations are typically more inclined to write things down, share things freely, post them in WhatsApp, all of these, or insecure connections, those things can be hacked. Just don't do any of that stuff. Make sure that you're always using a secure web connection. So if you get the little, triangle error up in that Chrome browser, then don't put your card details in.
Yeah, I saw a Reddit thread the other day, and somebody was like, "Hey, everybody in this sub, let's find our birthday partners. What's your birthday?" And hundreds of people were just like, "Oh yeah, this is my birthday," and somebody, "Oh, that's mine too. What year?" Right? It's just
and what's your mother's maiden name?
What city were you born?
What was your first pet? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just collect all of this stuff, though. It's crazy how people just willingly just throw that out there. It's I mean, people. Yeah. I think most people are kind of sketched out about their social security number, their credit card number, and I've actually seen a lot of people who are really sketched out about their routing number and checking account number, even though it's on a check that you would hand to the person at the grocery store and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've seen a lot of that stuff. Just people putting it out online, or there's surveys. The surveys on social media, right? The find out which Disney character you are. Then they ask you 30 questions about how many family members you have, and
yeah. I mean, fun as filling in those Disney surveys is, I personally would just steer clear of some of that, because you don't know who you're giving it away to, right? And I still throw away like bank statements into the bin, into the trash. And so some of that information, if you went through my trash, you could probably hack into some of my stuff. But we've just got to be super cautious these days. I mean, if you just have to watch that first series of, what was it? iRobot. Was it iRobot? No, not iRobot. What was the Amazon with Rami Malek? Hacker show. Totally forgotten what it's called.
Yeah, Mr. Robot.
Mr. Robot.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys just get into like Facebook accounts and totally steal people's information pretty easily.
Wait, yeah. But you don't have a shredder for your documents, though? That's like, I'm from Miami, so we shred all our documents.
Yeah. So. No. Even my mum was saying, you need to get a shredder. So
that's old paranoia. Yeah.
I judged a hackathon a few years back, and there was a kid there who had this it was like an RFID project or something. I'm not sure what the actual technology was that he was using, but he had basically like used an Arduino and like done all this stuff to if you were standing within like 5 feet of him, with an Android phone, he could download like all your contacts and like see what apps you had on and stuff like that. It's pretty creepy. Standing next to somebody and pull all that stuff down.
Yeah, so I guess the overall answer to your question, Liz, is just like you just got to be sensible and overly cautious. Like there's no reason not to be overly cautious. Sadly, you've got to think the worst of people.
Well, it's like right now, I think in every which way we're having to be overly cautious, right? I mean, you're on the other side of the ocean, and you guys are a little bit more strict. I'm in Georgia, where it's like party time now, apparently.
Oh, really?
Oh my God. They just opened up restaurants for full capacity.
Wow.
And there was never not full capacity, by the way, the whole time. So I just, so we'll see how it's going to be fun.
Yeah. I hear there's something going around.
It's like a cold or something.
Yeah. I mean, it just, depending apparently which variant you get, you might be fine. We're doing it. I mean, depending on whether you're an anti-vax skeptic or what, but like we've like vaccinated 31 million people or something in the UK now, so we're doing pretty well, which is great for getting things moving again. Hopefully. Has
this affected your business? What have you seen as far as like in the payment space? With how has that COVID affected that?
Yeah, I think there are two things. One is obviously there's been a general trend for having to do things online, sell and buy online. So that's great. We can help with that stuff. We're kind of on the gravy train of that trend, which is great. But at the same time, we still have to do sales. We have to, we're selling to software companies typically. And so if you're doing an outbound sales process and you want to get hold of someone, they're not in the office, then they might be looking, homeschooling their kids. So they're just harder to get through to. People want to do less, chats online or video calls. So that whole side of the business, we've had to get a lot more creative with, which I don't mind actually. But I think the other side is that it's forced a lot of businesses to push stuff online, which is good. And I think a lot of the highly consumable stuff, there's no reason why we shouldn't just buy it online. If you want to go and have a high street shopping experience or a shopping experience in the mall, then those brands that have got those brick and mortar stores are now required to make that way more interesting, which is great. Pick up all that consumable stuff online, have a great outdoor experience in the store.
Right. So it's all about audience experience now, essentially.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're not so much with the in-store, but as a consumer, I don't want to go to I'm not really interested in going to a Walmart type or a Costco type store and buying stuff. I can just get all that online, especially in the UK when it's a relatively small country, easier logistics. I can get all that, have it delivered to me by the time I get home.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But if I want to go and try on some new sneakers, check out exactly what the color of white is. I want to go into the store and walk around in them.
It's interesting because I think the restaurant industry is going in that direction too.
Yeah.
How people are, it's going to be, they started doing these co-op kitchens where you'd have, a bunch of restaurants cooking in the same kitchen and then just have delivery to wherever from this location. And then now you have the high-end restaurants where now it's more about, the personal experience and everything that's going on. So in general, that's rotating all around retail, Yeah,
absolutely. I think on a number of fronts, it's forcing brands and businesses to be a little bit more customer centric, move them forward technologically as well. Yeah. So, for example, we've got a couple of customers that they provide software for restaurants or bars or whatever, so that you can pre-order your drinks or food. And then you can, right now in the pandemic in London, you can go and pick it up or they'll deliver it. But what's going to happen when things open up again? They're still going to be using this tech, which means that you can pre-order stuff. But that's going to change how you interact with that business, right? Because maybe you can pre-order it before you get to the bar. Maybe you can sit down, pre-order it, and someone just brings the drinks or the food. You don't necessarily have to place your order in the same kind of way. So that could be efficient, but it can change the experience. And I think it's going to be interesting to see that hybrid model when things start opening up, because tech moves pretty fast in some of those industries.
What do you think the future looks like in payments? Like as far as tech moving fast goes, right? Like, are we going to see more regulations that are just going to continue to like tighten things down? Have you heard of any like cool innovations or anything like that coming down the pipe?
So if you look at the global landscape, there's more and more payments options opening up, specific to local markets. And so if you typically look at the kind of the card as that was the previous way that most people are going to pay for things online, even if they're using a wallet on their phone, the card is driving the cash that's in that digital wallet. But now in Europe, we've got things like open banking, which is effectively kind of disrupting that card industry. And so the transaction costs are a lot cheaper. You're getting those instant payments going between banks now, and you're getting a lot more transparency and kind of structured approach to those APIs. So that the kind of rails are changing. Payments are getting cheaper, getting easier, getting more transparent for everyone in the chain, to be honest. And then, of course, you've got the Bitcoin fans and all the cryptocurrency guys. I still haven't paid for a beer with Bitcoin yet, but
is that your sort of like benchmark for when it's gone mainstream? Maybe. I think maybe beer is going to be the commodity. I'm going to be paying for other things with beer. That'll be it. But yeah, we'll have to see. I think there just hasn't. I mean, it'd be really interesting. I saw what was it, Venezuela or one of those countries has like switched out their. I think it
was Argentina. No,
maybe it was Argentina. Yeah, they switched out their national currency for Bitcoin or a digital cryptocurrency. But
crazy.
Like it's coming down the track, and it's going to be hitting the mainstream, and that's going to really shake things up. I think it's changing people's relationship with money and how they pay for things, though, which is a bigger conversation which we can get into. I don't necessarily have the right answer for it, but I think the way in which we understand and treat money is changing dramatically. We have a different relationship than we used to have with it.
So what do you think about, like, in what sense do you mean that? As far as like the kind of respect that we have for money, the way it goes in between people as far as consumers are concerned, or what do you mean?
I think by having a digital currency, or even with the fact that we don't even touch money anymore. I mean, I don't know what it's like where you guys are, but I walk down the street and I don't have money to give to homeless people because I literally don't have.
You don't carry cash. I don't
carry cash. I can't remember the last time I had cash on me. And so when you're spending, and you're not spending physical money, you haven't got that $100 in your wallet, and you can't see, I've only got 50 left, I've got 20 left. It's driving that consumer mindset.
Right.
And so your attachment to the things that you're purchasing, actually, you could argue, is becoming less.
How can like cryptocurrency ever really be mainstream though? This is something that's bugged me about it for a while, right? Like the whole concept is that it's decentralized, right? That there's no central authority governing how the currency operates. But in order for it to be like a government currency or to have mainstream adoption, the powers that be are going to have control, right? That's just, there's no way around it. So wouldn't that just kind of like defeat the purpose of even going that route with blockchain versus like we have ledgers now, they're just not public.
Yeah, I think, I mean, what you're seeing with big tech in general is actually them becoming as powerful as governments, and this in effect is that, the democratization is good, the transparency is good, but at the end of the day, you've got to have national states looking out for people. Otherwise, the gap between the rich and the poor is we're going to end up in the Hunger Games, basically. You know, it's just, but I don't know. I don't know the answer. But on one hand, it is really dangerous because it's so decentralized that it's almost out of regulation. It's out of control. No one really knows. It becomes that other market. I'm not saying we're in a great state right now, depending on your socialist versus capitalist persuasion, but it's a shift, and I don't know. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, it's wild. I got into trading in Bitcoin and altcoins a few years back, and got pretty involved with it, and the swings are so crazy and so drastic compared to something like the stock market. Yeah. Like you can go to bed and wake up the next morning and either lose or gain 15 grand and just, off of like $300, and it's crazy. And, it's maybe not quite that big of a swing overnight, but you get what I'm saying. Like compared to the stock market, it's like it moves so quickly that if you're not paying attention, I mean, I've heard horror stories of people, who have like taken out a second mortgage on their house and dumped it into Bitcoin right before the crash. And like, it's just wild, the volatility there. Yeah.
And I think that's it. As long as it remains volatile like that, it can't go anywhere near the mainstream. It just can't.
Everybody's too scared.
Everyone's too scared. By the way, don't put your house on Bitcoin.
Yeah, never.
I mean, it's kind of like a bet, right? Where effectively you're betting on a football game, and you're like, I'm going to put my house on this because the 49ers, they're going to kill this. But you never know. Never bet more than you can lose. I'm willing to lose, but it is a gamble right now.
I like how you adapt your references, by the way.
Yeah. I'm all over the US thing.
Yeah, you're doing great. Like, I don't think I could do even near as well the other direction.
Well, look, it's easy. Like, you've totally infiltrated our world. Basically, we just watch US shows the whole time. I don't even know who I am anymore.
Well, I'll tell you, my wife and I and my son actually got really into the Great British Baking Show, which I guess is called something different over there.
Well, it's called the Great British Bake Off. That's it. So, yeah, even though we're in Britain, we still use the word Britain in the title.
Is this on Netflix or is this just like on regular TV?
This is BBC, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It's a cooking competition. It's fantastic. They go outside in a tent and they cook all sorts of awesome stuff. Makes you really hungry.
Yeah, my wife makes me go. I've been through like 9 seasons of that thing. But
oh man.
Yeah, it's pretty quintessentially British, isn't it? So
yeah, I guess they couldn't call it Bake Off here. I think it was Pillsbury owned the trademark or something.
Wow.
And so they had to call it the Great British Baking Show, and the title screens and everything are different. And but they still call it Bake Off on the show. That's how I found out, because I was like, "What are they talking about Bake Off? What is this Bake Off? Like that's not what this is called." So, but we get the secondhand version after it's been through legal.
How do you guys in the US? Obviously, you guys are educated, outward looking gentlemen. So you kind of you're watching things like Bake Off. Lewis, you're not. You need some help, but don't.
I'm sorry, man.
How do you come across? Are they, the US is so prolific in its media and its shows. How do you guys ridiculous. Find new stuff from around the world?
Oh, honestly, like I get it from Netflix. Anything that Netflix kind of like sends to me. I've been watching a lot of like German shows. I forgot the name. There's like this one time traveling show, but it's like, you know what I love though? I love the fact that like, being from the US, you're in this bubble. And then I start to see all this cinema and everything from outside. I'm like, bro, the quality is so sick. And some of the stories are just unbelievable. Better than the shit that we're putting out. Like, honestly, in the United States, a lot of times, I don't
think there's been an original movie come out in the US in a long time.
No,
like everything's a sequel or a spinoff.
It is.
Okay. Then in the 90s, we had all these great movies come out, which I'm not going to name any because then you're all going to judge my taste in movies.
We're already judging you anyway. Don't worry about it.
But then the 2000s and the 2010s and everything, like it's all been like,
Transformers 6.
Yeah, reboots.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Fast and Furious 19. Like it's all just rebooted over and over. They just redid Jumanji. And it's like it's a new movie now. It's a different type of movie, but it's still Jumanji. They just redid Jumanji. Twice.
Yeah. We talked about this with we had an illustrator that from DC Marvel. His name is George Genti. He was on, and we talked about how it's like this data-driven artistic stuff. That's what you're talking about, basically.
Yeah, they're like, this movie will sell tickets. Let's make 13 more of them and not come up with new creative stuff.
Because we know it'll sell X amount, and that's okay with us. Just enough to get it across the line.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? This kind of like the better the devil you know idea. This movie has some kind of equity, some kind of brand, some kind of audience, and it's like the diminishing the returns are just going like that, but we can still rinse that thing a little bit more.
Exactly.
Get out the next.
That's exactly it.
Next episode.
You remember when like when it used to be like offensive that they would show brands like bands or anything like that? Like in the music world, like you felt like this band's like, oh man, these guys are jokers. They're showing like a Dunkin' Donuts cup in their video. They're sellouts. Blah 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 blah. And now it's like just rampant. It's
like product placement. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm old, so that's showing my age. But
someone's got to pay for it. I mean, the thing is, with so much content, right? There's less and less viewers per show, and the model's been democratized again. Like the whole Netflix model. There's so many streaming services.
Yeah.
There probably isn't that same kind of revenue per movie or show that there once was. I mean, there's exceptions. So they've got to put that stuff in there. They've got to pay for it, I guess.
But you were talking about how you had to be creative, in your approach, right, to the market essentially now because of everything that's going on. So what ways were you, what kind of new creative ways are you using to approach customers or, retain customers or, what have you?
Yeah. And I don't know how creative I really am. I mean, you can be the judge, But I think it comes down to the context, the customer, and and how and what you do with that, and I guess that drives some of the creativity. So let me think. So I was after. I'll give you two examples. I was after a couple of different prospects. They were completely ghosting me. They were based in the UK, and I thought, man, this should be easy to contact these guys, and you do have to be careful with GDPR. You can't just go getting their mobile phone number and ringing them up. It's not. You can't do that. And of course, they're not sitting at their desk because it's pandemic, so you haven't got the direct dial.
Right.
So for one of them, I went on her Facebook profile, and she was a CEO. And she was really into documentaries. I can't quite remember how I figured this out, but anyway, I'm not. This sounds a bit nuts, but I wasn't crazy stalking her. But anyway, I had a quick look on her profile. Like she was posting about how I'm really into docuseries. Got any recommendations? So I made her a YouTube playlist with my top 10 docuseries things and sent it over in an email and was just like, hey, I heard that you love docuseries. I heard you're looking for some new stuff. And I did like a little like narration. Oh, I love this show because of this. And so I sent it over to her. And, that's one way to book a meeting.
Listen, that's awesome, actually. I like that. That whole thing is like incredibly like well set up.
Yeah, it's like the modern version of the mixtape. Right.
Yeah. But what's cool about it is that like you're really taking an interest in the person. And I think that's really what like wins it over more than anything. That if somebody's really taking that interest in you, I mean, you got to give them some time. You know what I'm saying? There's,
Yeah, and there's a fine line between really stalking them and coming across like a psycho, and actually sending them something quite cool because it
tell your daughter hello.
Screenshots of your front porch. Hello.
Yeah. What? Yeah. Here's me hiding in the grass outside your house. So that was one example. But another one was so I'm a big rugby fan myself, and I came across this guy. He was a product owner at a fairly big SaaS company in the UK. He was ghosting me as well. Like I was like, dude, come on, we're about the same age, Just tell me that you don't want to hear from me or something.
Right.
In the end, I knew that he liked rugby. I knew that actually he was a Kiwi, so he was from New Zealand, which means he definitely liked rugby. And so I sent him. There was an All Blacks of the New Zealand rugby team. There was an All Black game coming up that week, and I was like, this is perfect. So I sent him Amazon vouchers for beer. I bought him I can't remember, probably US $50 worth of beer, and I was like, dude,
oh my god,
enjoy the game. I know you love rugby. Come on, go ABs, go the All Blacks, and I hope to chat to you soon. And he just wrote back. He's like, man, I didn't talk to anyone, but I'll talk to you. Thanks. So we just chatted about rugby, and it was cool.
Nice.
That's awesome. So that's it's kind of like the slow progression towards a relationship, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, you got to work it for the person, and. You can get creative. So some of those outbound sales things, some of those customer success retention things might require a little bit of different creativity. So just the sky's the limit. As long as you're not hiding in people's porches.
In the grass. Yeah, sending random screenshots.
Yes, maybe the bottom of the clouds is the limit.
Yeah. But I think. Do you know what I think? The thing is that tech is so well modeled in terms of the processes now that it's not about necessarily doing the process. Anyone can do the process, or anyone can run a sales team to a certain degree because the model's there. It's how do you make your life you come to work for 8 hours a day. How do you make that interesting?
Yeah.
And so hopefully if you do make it interesting, you do a good job for the business that you're working for, and you enjoy yourself and everyone along the way.
So speaking of interesting things, I know I spent some time in the payment space. What's the most interesting thing that you've seen a customer selling? Right. So I know we had some really weird ones.
This could get bad. This could get bad.
Jeez.
That was worth a shot.
Okay. All right.
You don't have to answer that. The sky is the limit, I'm sure, in this.
An old customer that you don't have now, that you haven't worked with in years.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've changed all the names. So. No, but there was we have some weird stuff going on. I see some weird stuff. But there's horses for courses. There's something out there for everyone. I wish I could remember the name of this business, but the name of this business had the word pig in it. And anyway, it was male fetish stuff, because I was like, what? I can't remember why it popped up. anyway, because we're doing like millions of, there's millions of payments going through the system, but
yeah.
I can't remember how this customer popped up, and I was like, what is that? Anyway, they actually got shut down.
Yeah.
So there was those guys, and I mean, it was an amazing website. I don't know who took those pictures, but I can't get them out of my mind.
That's it.
We had
scarred for life.
Yeah. So that's probably the weirdest stuff I've seen that we didn't intentionally work with, but they were using our system. But I mean, we get people moving ammunition, like selling ammunition between countries. We get.
Can you do that? You could sell between countries like that? I thought you have to be like in country to buy it.
I don't know. I mean, it's legit. So
it's like they passed all of the quality checks. We had a guy, Lewis and I ran a Shopify app for a little while, and we had a guy on there who is like brilliant product, right? He basically, like the little earbuds that little foam earbuds you can put in your ears, like neon orange.
Yeah.
He they use them in the military, and he bought the blanks. They can be big sheets, and then the machines punch out all of the earbuds, and it leaves these little holes all through the thing. It looks like Swiss cheese. And we didn't realize what it was at first, but he's selling them as mats to lay on and look at the stars
at concerts and stuff.
At concerts and stuff.
This guy's my hero.
Yeah, dude. You know the margin's got to be huge. He's basically just like, hey, I'll take your trash from the factory and spinning it around. I thought that's brilliant.
I mean that's great. I love that. That is ecological, right? That's good for the environment, I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, he's making a buck out of it.
And thousands of people are able to lay and look at the stars without getting grass on their backs. What's important here.
They haven't realized that actually if you lay on them, it causes terrible acne. But anyway, that's fine.
I imagine you get up and you just have circles all over you.
No, I'm sure if it's made out of the earphone stuff, it's all good for the body. But I love that. That's cool.
Yeah, some weird stuff in the payment space, I'm sure.
I mean, we see I'm surprised at some of the transactions that we see. People spend I've seen $250,000 go through on a credit card.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, man, who did that?
Do you want to grab a beer later?
Yeah. No, that would definitely be breaking GDPR cards.
We can be friends, right?
Do you guys deal in CBD payments and stuff like that? Because we used to be in the CBD space. Is that how's that going over there?
Yeah, I think the CBD thing is a shifting world, I think, and it kind of, with the payment providers that we deal with and the banks, they're constantly changing their view on it.
Yeah.
We actually get quite a lot of inbound requests for help to find payment services that accept CBD stuff. There's actually not that many vendors and banks and payment processors that will work with CBD stuff still.
Yeah.
But in the UK, you're seeing more and more of these companies that actually sell CBD stuff on the high street as well. So it's becoming more accessible. They're having to pay through the nose for the card processing fees and stuff like that. And to be honest, I'm not entirely sure why. So, it's, I don't know. What do you guys think? What was your experience selling it? Was it
a nightmare.
It was
a nightmare. So this was one of mine and Lewis's earlier projects before the pandemic. We started this CBD brand, and just getting a bank account for it was almost impossible, right? It's when you talk about credit card processing, that's one thing, but the credit card processor has to be able to dump money somewhere.
Yeah.
And if there's no bank account, you're, at square one. So we ended up essentially taking the business sort of in a different, more broad direction, so that we could get a bank account under some of our other services, and then have that as sort of a secondary thing that we did.
Yeah.
Instead of the major focus. And then getting the payment processing, I think I called maybe
150
processors,
no, more than 50, bro.
Yeah, I mean, it was like weeks, like just on the phone, like every 5 minutes with a different, because they all, high risk processors, they all want to sell you. They get their sales guys, and they're like, hey, we're going to change your life. We can, underwrite murder for hire. It's all good, and but then you find out like, oh, but we need you to incorporate in Nairobi, and and like all this other weird stuff, and so. We eventually were able to get it all set up, but it took us a few months. And at the end of the day, we were paying big fees. And we did have to deal with the bank account getting shut down, once in the middle of stuff. And we had to go and spin up a new account somewhere else. And
which is nuts, right? Because effectively, well, like you're a legit business, you're selling a legit product. You're good guys. You're not selling to drug lords or you're pushing coke on the streets. You're not doing that stuff. And I suspect, like for fraud, like you were talking about fraud earlier, like I suspect your fraud would be super low. Like the people legitimately want this stuff.
Like zero chargebacks.
Yeah, you're not stealing credit cards to go and buy a load of CBD oil, right?
Right.
And the other thing is, like, if you can't process the payment through a kind of pretty regular bank account or merchant account that you'd get on the, that a regular business would get, then you're going to go down the Bitcoin route. You're going to have to find these alternative payment methods, and then you're just effectively forced to be in a different economy that is not particularly well looked after and regulated, because you can't operate in the mass economy. But it's not helpful. I don't think it's helpful for anyone to do that.
Yeah, it's like the cannabis businesses out on the West Coast and stuff. They're all cash only.
Yeah, that's so dangerous.
Just walking around with like hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash.
Yeah,
it's wild.
And exactly. And for the US government, it's like, well, Uncle Sam's not getting his tax dollars probably either, because it's easy not to do your tax on that. Or easier. So it doesn't help. It doesn't really help, Yeah.
So I got a question for you here. This is we like to pick out a question to ask people that's kind of light. And now that you've made it a little ways through your beer, maybe it'll be the right time.
I'm limber. I'm all limbered up. Yeah.
All right. So if you had to be a Siamese twin with one other person, who would you pick to be stuck with?
This is one of the questions that you need to warn me about. Partly because I might say something ridiculous.
That's okay. We can edit.
I'd probably be like with Dwayne Johnson or something.
Yeah. How tall are you?
Yeah.
Well, this is the funny. This is the funny part, because he would literally carry me around. Because I couldn't be like with an attractive lady, because I'd be distracted all the time. And Dwayne Johnson's just like, everyone loves Dwayne Johnson, right? The Rock. And
he's probably going to be president,
So yeah, I hope so. And I'm going to be alongside with him.
But he works out really hard, man. Like I've heard he had like hours and hours, like every day. Like you would be there for the whole thing.
This is true. There would be a lot of sweat passing going on.
When he broke that gate down, you'd have to be right alongside with him, like tell him like throw it over there, like
I guess there was no stipulation on how you were conjoined.
That's true.
This is true.
That's a technicality.
I feel like I'd be more like a backpack for Dwayne. Like,
I love it.
I don't know. I need more warning on those types of questions to come up with something.
No, that's perfect. That's good.
Oh man, I'm dying.
Well, listen, I know that this was an interesting conversation, kind of off the cuff. Kind of unknown, but the free form of conversation, I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you. I think it's great. I love it off the cuff, so it's good.
Do you want to drop some URLs out there, anything for Shuttle, and how can people find out more about you guys? Yeah,
so you can go to shuttleglobal.com. We are expanding this year. If you're a QuickBooks user, you might end up using one of our apps to get your invoices paid. So yeah, you might find us in different marketplaces. But if you're running a SaaS business, they're the kind of guys that we want to talk to. We want to stitch up this kind of global payments situation and enable tech companies to be able to work globally and acquire customers globally. That's the point of cloud computing. So yeah, shuttleglobal.com, check it out. You can find me on LinkedIn otherwise. If you want to chat about, creative sales stuff or, my affection for Dwayne Johnson, then hit me up.
I love it.
Fantastic. All right. So thanks everybody for tuning in. That's it for the Sendlio podcast. You can find more episodes at www.sendlio.com.